Hello, church. Have a seat. So, anyone been to the airport recently? We did our little spin last night really late to pick up brother and his family, and they're sleeping in. So on Facebook, most of the status updates from friends are about children home from college or going off someplace. And for many years of my life, Christmas was just as much about lost luggage and delayed flights as it was about presents under the tree or that inevitable tin of fruitcake from Great Aunt Doris. In fact, one of the more common seasonal conversation openers we have with people we really don't know too well is, are you going anywhere for Christmas? Or, who you have coming for Christmas? This is a season of travel. And you might think that today's gospel could be considered the scriptural kickoff. The angels just departed, and Mary is left alone to grapple with all the implications of that spontaneous, heartfelt yes to God's offer of a piece of salvation history. And yes is an easy thing to say in the midst of heavenly glow, cheeks fanned by the gentle breeze of angel wings, breathing in the fragrance of divine presence. But yes becomes kind of hard in the aftermath, when the room is still, the lights back to normal, and the usual sounds of daily life filter in through the window. And then you're sort of what? Did that really happen? And what seemed perhaps like a really good idea, become the mother of the Most High, becomes, in the absence of the angel, little more than a preposterous conceit. Outrageous, inconceivable. Not to mention the implications of being just a little bit pregnant in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. And so Mary did the only thing possible. She packed her bags and went out to seek the sign that had been given to her by the angel, to travel a route that would not only prove her sanity, but her destiny. She traveled to see her cousin Elizabeth, to see with her own eyes what the angel had said was true. Now, the passage reads that she went in haste. Another reading of the Greek suggests she could have gone with intent, or with zeal, or even earnestly. She journeyed in search of confirmation and affirmation, and found it, not only in the physical evidence of her cousin Elizabeth's pregnancy, but also in the affirmation and warmth of her cousin's greeting. "Blessed be you!" Now, they remained together for 3 months, long enough to get used to the shared miracle of pregnancy and prophecy, long enough to draw strength from each other, and long enough to know that with God, nothing was impossible. And then Mary returned back to Nazareth, ready to face the gossip, ready to work out her relationship with Joseph and her family, and ready for the next journey, this time to Bethlehem. Now, we travel for a lot of reasons in our lives. As a child, I can remember days spent in the back seat of the family car as we drove from our home in Arlington, Virginia, to my grandparents' house in Austin, Texas. So I traveled then basically to get a sense of my roots. Later, I was put on planes and sent to camp, to language schools, to visit friends and relations in distant parts, and those travels were journeys of discovery. And since then, I've traveled for any number of reasons in any number of ways, some good, some bad. I've traveled to say goodbye to elderly relatives and to say hello to nieces and nephews. I've traveled to find myself, and I've traveled to escape myself. I've traveled with no luggage, and I've traveled with entirely too much luggage. I've traveled leading the way and traveled dragging my feet, if not kicking and screaming, all the way. I've traveled prepared for every possible contingency and traveled having brought along absolutely nothing useful for the journey. Prepared or not, dragged or leading, escaping or finding, rarely have I ever found myself the exact same person at the end of the trip as the one who first set out. Journeys tend to draw out change. And looking back, I have to admit that the journeys that have changed me the most have been the ones that I've been the least prepared for, the ones I have least wanted to go on, or the ones that I have been not at all certain of that final destination. Okay, for example, I first came out to Tucson in 1979 to attend the University of Arizona and to earn my degree and become the world's finest archaeologist. Do not laugh, John Madsen. I ended up taking the most scenic of journeys to graduation. And in the course of the journey, I picked up a working knowledge of Spanish, all the useful words, and a comprehensive knowledge of classic period ceramics of Veracruz, guaranteed to be a conversation stopper at any party, and on at least one occasion, a vicious case of dengue fever. One Sunday morning, I stumbled into a church, and I signed up to sing in the choir. I thought of it as a little side trip on my journey to graduation and a flourishing career as professor of archaeology. But the side trip became a new journey with an entirely new destination, and Tucson became my starting point, and the priesthood and Massachusetts my destination. Now, I really didn't want to leave Tucson at all. I kept wishing there were a way to travel and stay still. But that doesn't work. To journey, you have to leave. So I thought I was prepared for that journey from Tucson to Boston. I sold my house, most of the possessions, calculated how much I could fit into the truck, arranged for the cats to be transported cross-country. I thought I was all prepared, but ha! The list of things I was not prepared for on that journey far outdistanced the list of the things that I was prepared for. It was cold in Boston. It's really cold in Boston. And there are these things called traffic circles. And I was not prepared for real pastoral encounters with dying patients and grieving families. I was not prepared to step into a pulpit and see a sea of faces looking to me to give them something to hang on to in the coming week as if I were an expert. And by the end of seminary and other years, I did learn how to layer my clothing, drive like a Bostonian with hand gestures, and listen to grieving families. And if not preach the answer on a Sunday morning, at least to try to point to where I begin the search for an answer. And eventually, I went on a journey to what I first thought was a return, where I thought I could just pick up my old life, even go back to the church where it had all begun. But my old life no longer fit. And try as I might, I could not squeeze all the new parts of me into it. So what I thought was going to be a return actually turned out to be a new journey. Tucson had changed, but I was no longer the person I had been. And again, I found myself on a journey. Thank God it was only cross town this time. Coming as a rather snarky, token Protestant parish priest and transformed into an Anglo-Catholic middle school teacher and chaplain. I kept the snark. It's become really handy for the middle school piece. And so it goes. And now I've journeyed into retirement. And I've joined the choir. Lord knows where that's going to lead. What I've learned is that God calls all of us to be travelers, constantly setting out on journeys to destinations that become new starting points. And with every journey comes an invitation to be transformed. So, how good a traveler are you? Do you wander with zeal and earnestness? Or are you dragged, kicking, and screaming? Are you on your main journey? Or are you currently making a side quest? And are you sure that side quest isn't the start of a whole new adventure? This is the week we travel to Bethlehem, ready or not, to be present once again for the arrival of the Christ child. And some of us make this trip with zeal, riding in on angel wings, ready to experience the miracle of God who has traveled across the boundary of eternity to be with us. And some of us come dragging our feet through sheep droppings, making the journey for the first time without a partner or a spouse or a friend or a child. And we come wanting to believe, and yet we're worn down by sorrow and grief and loss. Still, some of us are going to Bethlehem kicking and screaming on the back of a donkey or a camel or dragged here by a parent. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we get to Bethlehem this year or any year. It doesn't matter whether we have spent the last 4 weeks in prayerful preparation or in a busy whirlwind of shopping, parties, decorating, Christmas cards, and it's never going to get done until somehow it does. It doesn't matter whether we go filled with joy or burdened with despair. What matters not how we go, but that we go. Because no matter how far and difficult the trip is for us, God has traveled farther to meet us. We go because we are God's destination. And just as we have been and will be changed by our journey to God, so has God been and will be changed in the journey to us. So, our Advent journey is nearly complete. John has made his pronouncements. Mary has gone to the hill country and sung Magnificat. But a new journey is soon to begin. Caesar's decree is about to go out through all the lands, and all the inns in Bethlehem are filling up. So don't worry if the Christmas cards aren't mailed. They make wonderful Epiphany cards. Or that the presents aren't wrapped. Or that the airline still hasn't quite located that second suitcase that somehow went to Nicaragua. God has set out, and God is on the way. And so it's time for us to hit the road. We don't want to keep God waiting. So, let's go. Amen.